Hey, Julie.
Hey, how was your Thanksgiving?
Ugh, Thanksgiving was delightful. I think I shared this with you, but not like a proud moment, but like a moment of reflection on growth. I was with my husband's family. They're amazing, beautiful people. It's a really big family, and I'm not used to that. So, for many years, our get togethers have been truly stressful for my entire nervous system for a variety of reasons. Um, and this year was great. I I was present. I drank less. So that's always a sign to me. I didn't intentionally go in to be like, I'm going to drink less. I just wasn't like trying to, you know, numb out or whatever. Um, and I didn't feel drained. Like that was one of the first times I've left a full family gathering and I didn't feel like I needed to go like crash on the couch or be in my bed for days afterwards. So
Yay.
yeah, I think I can fully attribute that to Kundalini yoga.
Wow, that's awesome.
Just a theory, but I truly think it's the daily breath work. So not to say I won't be
Great.
triggered or again, but it was cool. So how was
Yeah.
your Thanksgiving?
What my growth moment was, we had a family bowling thing on Wednesday, and I write with my left hand, eat with my left, whatever. But I play sports with my right hand, and so I'm a right-handed bowler for those of you that are interested. And I also can be a little bit competitive, and so I went for the first frame, and I haven't bowled in years, but and I was like, oh, yeah, I kind of forgot that I slept in a different bed last week and kind of jacked up my neck and my arm. And I was like, you probably need to bowl with your left hand. And I was like, well, I can't do that because I will be no good. And I like had to like talk myself. And my sister Susan is also very competitive. So she's out there, like she's got the full leg crossing behind, and that ball's going down that alley. Like this is her life depends on it. And strike. And I'm like, got my left arm, and I'm like a grandma trying to throw it down with the wrong arm. And it was okay. I got a 72. That was my score. And I was like, you know what? This was a growth moment for me because in the past, I would have just powered it through.
Ah,
Absolutely. I would have been like, oh, fuck no. Nope. I got to be the top of the board on bowling. So,
wow.
yeah. There's a very competitive thing in our family. Like it's a thing. And so that was the growth stuff because I would have probably I would have like dislocated my arm to just like have a good bowling score on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So that was growth. And
I'm
then
proud of you.
yeah, so it was, and all of it was good. My life is Easter famine though, because family was in town and I had family activities Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, go. And then my sister, everything ended on Saturday. And I was like, well, it's just me and the cat now. you
Yeah.
know, why is life like that for me? I mean, my whole life I'm wanting balance. And it feels like it keeps showing up in like, you got a ton of stuff to do and then nothing.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
so I'm back to the like, finding fun in my me time.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah. So what are we talking about today?
Well, interesting that you brought up your competitiveness. This is something that has come up for me as I've been actually prepping for a guest lecturer role coming up next week. I get to go. My friend teaches creative nonfiction writing at the School of the Arts here in North Carolina, and she asked me to come just hang out with her students and do a little lecture on whatever was coming up for me about creativity. And I was led to the work of Francis Weller, and he's a psychotherapist, an author, he's an international speaker, but he really specializes in kind of the psyche of the mind. And so he speaks in archetypes, which is my language, and he talks a lot about the role of the predator, the archetype of the predator in our creative process. And, Julie and I, we believe that we're all creators, that we are here to create out of our uniqueness, whatever that looks like. It doesn't mean art necessarily. It can be you're creating relationships, you're creating experiences, whatever.
Creating a creating a child, like you're creating whatever, a vacation. I mean, you're making dinner. You are creating.
Yes. And this archetype of the predator it's representative, it's symbolic of whatever is in our lives that we are in our instinct for survival, we want to run from. And then that triggers our warrior archetype. So I would love to kind of talk about warrior archetypes. That's something that I've just been called to kind of reflect on in my own life. We can kind of talk about, well, I'd love to ask you, Julie, because I do believe that myths and archetypes and, these legends, they come up for us to continue rewriting in the present day. So myths they contain universal truths, but they're meant to be rewritten to apply to today. We're in a completely different world than we were when Greek mythology was actually, real time. So when I say warrior, what comes to mind? If you're like that person or that character is a warrior, how would you describe them?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'll just tell you my response to warrior. Can I do that first?
Yeah. Yeah.
I am often called a warrior, and I think in my younger days was like, fuck yeah, yeah, I'm a warrior. Yeah, that means I'm a badass. I get shit done and don't fuck with me, that kind of thing. And now when people tell me I'm a warrior, I'm kind of like, yeah, I know. But I don't necessarily want I don't want to be a warrior at all times. I don't want that to be what the world sees about me. And I think people see my strength and what I've come through. But I would like to be softer, and I'd like my life to allow me to be softer. So, I kind of see it as a warrior with wings, where you can kind of rise above the fray. I don't need to go into battle. I don't need to prove something. I don't need to show that I don't have to slay every dragon. Every dragon is not mine to slay.
You don't need to beat your sister's ass in bowling.
Exactly. Exactly. So it's kind of like the warrior, she's loyal, she's strong, she's tenacious, she's brave. I mean, but she's tired. So, I guess I resist that for myself now because I feel like I want to move beyond that.
Yeah. So that was beautiful and a great setup, because what I'm proposing is that we have kind of this traditional archetype of the warrior that doesn't fit for us anymore. And for some people it does still fit, but how can we kind of reclaim the concept of being a warrior in a way that works in our lives, in a way that feels sustainable? So when I think of, and I'm drawing from a writer named Carol Pearson. She wrote this book about the 12 archetypes, and it was kind of a way of knowing yourself, knowing different parts of yourself. It's based on Carl Jung, obviously, who was kind of the pioneer of this concept that within us, within all humans, live these common archetypes or symbols that represent different parts of ourselves. And they're universal because they apply to the collective human experience. So warrior is one of those archetypes. The traditional warrior archetype is the dragon slaying, charging into battle, weapons raised, bloodthirsty, wanting to best the adversary. And I think about a lot of our common like hero stories, like Odysseus or Achilles. Like those were the heroes, those were the warriors, and they were worshipped for their brutality, for their power, their physical strength. So warrior often brings a masculine element when we think of a warrior. I mean, women are just recently allowed to be in the military. So that on that most basic level, those are our warriors today. So how can we reclaim that aspect? Because I would also love to talk about the warrior archetype in me does feel very strong. It is a part of who I am, and I know you felt that way too. My unbalanced warrior part has caused a lot of damage in my life. It's also part of my like achiever. I gotta go out there and I gotta, here's my to-do list and I gotta get this done, manifest this shit. That also does not work for me anymore. So, thoughts before we move forward?
So, I mean, what's coming in for me is the cause. The cause is my peace, my personal peace. The pursuit is not a pursuit of justice or a pursuit of, an eye for an eye, or the pursuit is love. And so if I can see myself as a warrior for peace, it for myself, that changes that whole idea. It's about allowing. It's about engaging in only that which brings me to a vibration of equanimity, love, acceptance. It's about creating balanced relationships and boundaries. And there's a way to do that. Hello. There's a way to do that that isn't guns a-blazing. Because every time I come out with guns a-blazing in that old warrior energy, I am impacting cortisol levels. I'm impacting my immune system. I am really doing, doing damage to my body over time. And so I'm very aware of that too. All those spikes and that, that fight, that's not good for us. And so to shift that to be a warrior of peace and a warrior of love, and warrior with wings is what came in right away when we started talking. To be a warrior with wings, there's a softness, first of all, to the wings, right? But also a knowing when you elevate, you rise above out of a situation that's not intended for me and will not bring me into higher states of peace and joy and whatever, vitality.
Yeah, and I think as women, we have a particular challenge, tapping into our warrior part, because at least for me, for so long, I was still trying to play by the rules in a very masculine world. And so my masculine warrior did rise up, and the way it got expressed was through kind of rage towards men. And there was this like feminist warrior in me that was like, fuck men, I'm gonna be this like free, and which is hilarious because I wasn't free in any way, shape, or form. But that was the fight, right? And that's what Francis Weller talks about. When he mentions the predator as an archetype, whatever it is in your life that triggers the warrior response, that could be considered your predator.
Like
And
like the actual idea of the feminist movement. Like, how was that movement supportive of feminism? I personally, I don't see it that way. It was a way of telling us that we could be more like the men.
right.
I don't want to be like the man. I'm a woman. I want to be more like a woman. And so as usual, have a totally different response to you. You're like, yeah, fuck, I want to do this without the man and blah, blah, fuck the man. I can do everything that he can do. I don't want to do everything he can do. I don't want to. Like, and because I've, been single for, pretty long time with my kids and kind of raising my kids, like I've done a lot of that masculine energy stuff. And yes, is it empowering to cut down your own tree and climb on your own roof? Yeah, it's nice to know you can. I don't want to do that. So to me, you're talking about, that archetype, right? Of like the feminist movement didn't support feminism in my mind at all. I
Mhm.
didn't know. We
Well,
need both.
and it creates a distraction, and there have been positive elements of the movement, obviously, just like in terms of equality in the
Oh,
workplace and
oh, right, right,
all
right.
of that. But when it comes to my warrior self, I've had to unlearn a lot of things and then come back in tune with, okay, what does it mean to be a warrior? Because that part of me that wants to slay my enemy is very strong in me, very strong. And I still struggle with that. When someone hurts me, my immediate reaction is like, how am I going to ruin their life? No, no lie. And this reminds me, my sister and I took a road trip out west in 2020 when everything was shut down. And we were camping one night outside Bryce Canyon in Utah. And we were just like having this beautiful campfire, just me and Em, and this creepy ass old man who was like, they had a whole RV set up, comes out of his RV and just stares at us. And my sister was like, do you see this guy? I was like, yep, just ignore him, whatever. He doesn't move. I'm not exaggerating. 10 minutes, this dude stands there, still as a wooden post, just staring us down. So now I'm getting, you saw me. I said, just ignore him, right? Now I'm like, there's a threat. Like, I see red. And I was like, this motherfucker. And I get up and I'm like, do you need something? And he was upset that we had a fire when there was a fire ban, but we'd already talked to the ranger. He said, this is what you do. You obviously contain it. You dig a hole. We had done all that. So we knew we were fine. He was not backing down. He was like, I see you're from North Carolina. You don't know anywhere else. So he's going off. Then I'm meeting his energy. I'm going off. We're in each other's space. This was 2 years ago, okay? This is something I was like, oh, my 20-year-old self would do. No, 2 years ago, I did this. Whatever. It gets smoothed over. It doesn't really get smoothed over. He calls the cops. The cops come out, and the cops like, yeah, they're fine. They're whatever. And we go to bed. The next morning, we're like, we're getting the hell out of here. So we pack up our shit real early, and we have to drive by their RV setup to get out. And we're driving by, and I was like, I just want to like throw a Molotov cocktail through their fucking window and burn their shit down. And I just was like, I forgot how vindictive you are. I was like, yeah, I want to destroy this motherfucker. Like, no logic in me. That is a perfect example of my unbalanced warrior. Like, I can fuck some shit up, right? But we don't want
Well, I want to point out the what is it, the expression, I saw red,
Yeah.
and bring that back to the root chakra. And that root chakra is red, you know, if we give it a color, and it is about survival. It is our primal animalistic nature. And so a lot of the warrior historically is that energy is root chakra energy because it is coming from injustice,
Fear.
brutality. Right. There's a lot of survival. I need to get this. I need to protect my people. I need to get my food. I need to ensure the safety. And it is root chakra, root chakra, root chakra. And as we, as a collective humanity, are beginning to bring more of these, the higher chakra centers online in a balanced way. Hopefully they meet in the heart, right? And then love wins. That's the plan. But the longer we are so identified with that root chakra, seeing red warrior, we inhibit the ability for all this to come into alignment for the evolution of our species.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so when we think about the archetype of the warrior, the predator is always going to exist. And it looks different for every person. The presence of the predator is to activate something in us that drives our creativity, that drives us out of ambivalence, mediocrity, just the kind of like, I'm going to walk through my life, bah, 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 not present. The predator brings us to the present moment, and we get to decide how we want to respond. So that's why I'm asking, what does an evolved warrior archetype look like? Because we still need that part, right? That's still part of us. We're not eliminating the root chakra. How do we integrate it into higher vibrations with the intention of unity versus adversary, me versus you?
Well, I mean, it is the I am you and you are me, and and it's like, well, not really, but sort of, because when I'm able to see, I had a minor scuffle that I didn't scuffle with my daughter yesterday, and it's frustrating. I don't need to get into the details of it, but I thought I could have easily just gotten into the whatever. Bottom line, I was like, this is just where she is. This is about her. This has nothing to do with me. I just happen to be in the car with her at this moment, and I am getting, her confusion, her lack of integration, her lack of self-respect, her lack of purpose. But it was all coming swirling around me, and I just chose. I don't want to do battle with her inner what are we calling what's the other archetype? Hold on. Not the demon. What's your
Predator.
predator? That was her inner predator.
Mm.
Her predator was like at play in the car with me, and I chose not to engage with her predator, right? And so having an awareness that she is me, she is of me, and she's currently in a vibration where the predator has a hold on her, right? I'm choosing not to participate with her predator. And even her predator is driving me to a higher expression of myself because it's giving me practice at holding my vibration and being an expression of balanced boundaries, right? So I just said to her, you know what, I think it's best if we just not talk right now. That was all. But her predator is helping me.
Well,
But
that's the whole grand joke.
right. And, to talk about the predator as something that's necessarily, I mean, I know the archetype would be that we all carry the predator, but I think more often than not, the predator is me. I mean, it's me towards me
Mhm.
and towards, I mean, judging myself, right? Or, oh, whatever you create. I mean, why would you create it anyway? You're never going to make any money off of it. And so, what's the point of making it? Or, well, why would I make delicious meals? Like, I'm the only person living here. It's kind of a waste of money. Like, that predator
Mhm.
is me, you know?
Yeah.
And it can drive me towards creativity, or it can be a massive delay, in terms of the fullest expression of my creativity.
Yeah. And that, I mean, that's what's the most hilarious part is that the predator is working for us, but we forget. And so that's why it triggers, it's pushing buttons, pushing all of our buttons to see how we choose to react. And like you in the car with your daughter, what a beautiful example of what I am hoping to embody as the new warrior archetype is holding steady, like the tree that's rooted. It can bend and flex in the wind, but it's not uprooted. We're not leveled by other people's predator anymore. We're not leveled by external pressures of how am I going to pay that? How am I going to make enough money to pay this? Or how am I going to make sure my kids are going to the best school? Whatever it is for you that those fears that are running, a true love warrior is the one who can hold the center in the midst of all of it. And that's how I would define it. I don't know. I'm sure people would define it differently, but
Well, I'm thinking about that book. I think I read it years ago, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. And we'll have to have a link because I can't even, but that's what I'm to be a peaceful warrior is it's not loud, right? It doesn't create chaos. It's not about destruction.
right.
You know, the way for me to engage with these discordant frequencies is to literally, if I think about being this balanced frequency in those times, I am the most effective warrior because my vibration isn't going down to that level where it just ugh, ugh, ugh. It's like it's it's like it's winning with love. I mean, to win with love is to hold that vibration, and because of entrainment, my daughter was either I could tell she was then she started feeling more uncomfortable. So like when she was in her battle mode, which was rah, 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 and I was like, okay, nope. And when I was like, I think we're just gonna, it's best we just don't talk for now. Because I was like, yeah, no. Then all of a sudden she's looking at her phone, she's shuffling her papers, she's a little unsure about what to do. And it's like, yeah, I broke whatever that was. And it was, I mean, it was guns and swords and slings and arrows and blah, blah, blah. And because I am more powerful than she is at this moment in her life, I did nothing. And I mean, that's how you win. If
That's
you
badassery.
right, right. But no one would have looked at that as a warrior at all. And in fact, there'd be plenty of parents that would be like, "You're gonna let your daughter talk to you like that? She needs
Uh,
to stand." Like, no, I would teach her a thing or two, the lack of respect, these fucking kids. I mean, but there's a million stories. And in the past, I would have been like, she needs the blah, 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 blah. And it's like, no, you need to stay calm.
that's a beautiful way to put it. Like a love warrior, instead of matching someone's energy, will hold their own energy. And then because that's going to be the greatest vibration in the room, that's going to start drawing everyone else's vibration towards it, which that is bad assery. That is true wizardry right there. You can't see it, but you can feel it, and there's a completely different outcome. That's beautiful. And if you think about like warriors being like, oh, they're going to do the tasks that no one else can do, right? They're going to charge into battle. No one else wants to be on the front lines. That's the shit no one else wants to do, is
No.
to not let your ego rise to the fight, or whatever it is, stress out about the money or whatever the predator is asking for you to reflect on in your life. That's the hard part. That's the hard thing to do. So maybe we could say a warrior does the hard shit, the truly hard shit.
Truly hardship. I remember a time in my life that I realized everything I want to do, don't do that. And everything I don't want to do, yeah, you probably need to do that. And it was just that freaking simple. I was like, well, this is gonna suck.
Hmm.
Because it was like I want to pick up the phone and whatever, bitch about that situation I just came through. I want to tell other people, how this person wronged me. I want to get my version of the story out first, just in case. Or, I want to go run at the ass crack of dawn, or all the things that I used to want to do. It was like, okay, so if you want to do that, don't do that.
Yeah.
And that is becoming the warrior. That I am. My predators are all those things, like, do that, go do that, go do that, go do that. And it's like, no, no, no. And it's
Hmm.
just interesting, when I made it that simple, I was probably in my 30s. And it's one of the things that I remember doing in my life that started to make a big difference. And I didn't do it well, and I didn't do it often, but I thought about it
Yeah.
and considered it. And I think when we have authority over our body's responses and what comes out of our mouth, and how we engage or disengage from energy, that is, I mean, that's in that stillness is the victory.
Yes. And you said peaceful warrior, and that's one of my favorite yoga poses. It feels so good in my body. And even just like the visual of like, here's warrior two. You're right. I'm like not doing it fully, but like you're
Right.
you're extending out, right?
Right.
And then peaceful, what's peaceful warrior? It's just like, oh, I'm allowing whatever's coming at me to kind of like up and over.
Yeah.
Right over top.
Right. Yeah, totally. Totally.
Well,
You're
and
not
I
meeting
also,
head on. There is that level of allowance to it,
yes.
and adapting and bending. There's that bending in that.
Yep.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I love that mental shift that you made, because there's kind of two schools of thought. One is that like your desires lead you to your path, and then the other school of thought is like exactly what you did, where it's like, no, you actually need to bring the opposite into your life of what you want in order to balance. Um and that sounds like it was like you kind of retraining your brain and resetting your system. And I would add that a warrior trains every day, or whatever that looks like for you. And this is something that is just, it keeps coming up for me over and over and over again, that like the consistency in my practice, and my practice can be different every morning, but I have chosen to commit to consistently showing up to start my morning in a way that I'm trying to set my day with a specific tone. So that usually involves stretching, yoga, breath work, Sometimes there's journaling, sometimes it's just listening to music, sometimes it's silent meditation, but that is my commitment to myself as a love warrior. You don't become a warrior, you're not born a warrior. You become one. So this practice of choosing love, especially when we don't want to, that takes consistency over time and a lot of work.
Well, I mean, they call it a yoga practice, a meditation practice. They call it practice for a reason because, we're always practicing and different people and situations. It's all practice. So it's interesting that we bring up the practice because I think when I was younger, in my 20s, 30s, I would get up and start my day working out. Let's pound it out. And my guide said to me, it was right at the beginning when I was getting messages, but I wasn't getting like full on messages, but I would hear something and it was like, well, that's not me. That wasn't my thought. I don't know what that was. But they said to me, you start your day as if you're preparing for battle, and then you're surprised when life brings you a battle.
Mm.
What would it be like if you started your day in a more softened way? And I was probably 40 when I heard that. And I was like, what the fuck? Don't be coming for my workout. I mean, I was like, listen, this is how I got to start my day because this is how I stay strong and ready and all that. And that energy of that warrior was then radiating out and bringing to me, if you understand quantum physics, bringing to me situations of that same energy. And so it perpetuated this belief that I always needed to be ready and I always needed to be strong. And so somewhere in my 40s, I started the exercise of starting my day with reading and journaling and meditation and did that, I don't know, for many years. And now here we are finding balance. And what does that look like to find balance? So the practice changes.
Yeah.
And it morphs and it shifts but there is as you say, the deliberate training, that ongoing commitment. And that is the energy of a warrior, the commitment. The commitment.
The refusal to
integrity.
Yeah. Oh, I like that too.
It's the integrity. There's integrity, that spirit of a warrior. When you think of a warrior, that's someone with integrity. You can count on that.
Yeah, and someone who refuses to compromise, which I've also been playing around with the word compromise. Maybe we should do a whole episode on this too, as it's come up in like marriage counseling. It's like, oh, you have to compromise. You have to compromise. And I'm very resistant to that word because, and then Richard Rudd, founder of the Gene Keys, said it perfectly. He was like, relationships are full of external compromises. It's the internal that we cannot compromise.
Well, and compromise, the guys were breaking it down for me, it's promise. And calm is community.
Yeah.
So it is making a promise with others. How do we create a promise together? And that means we have to make a promise together. But that's our view of compromise. Like when you and Luke are working, through an issue in your relationship, it does call for a compromise, but it's about creating a promise together.
That's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah, it is.
Share that with him because he's very much of the like, we sacrifice ourselves for our marriage, and I'm like, no, we don't. But I will sacrifice my desire to take this trip next year so that we, so it's different. Right. But the warrior is uncompromising in their inner truth, what they stand for, and how they show up in the world. And
Mhm.
I think of, I'm picturing like social justice warriors, and I know there's kind of a negative connotation to that, but we see a lot of times like social justice warriors get burnt out because they are bringing that fight energy and they truly believe that that's been their mission, you know. And then recently I've met some social justice warriors who aren't out there fighting. What they're actually doing is bringing the community into their home for beautiful storytelling events, or they are organizing a celebration of diverse women in art. You know, so there's a totally different vibe to protesting on the front line of something, which is fine if that's what you're also you feel you're called to do, versus the community aspect that you were just talking about. That action is way more powerful, in my opinion, than the fight, and more sustainable.
Right. Totally. Right. The creation of joy, joyous community is stronger than any battle.
Yes. Yes. And instead of fighting, the warrior with wings creates. So,
And rises above the fray, right? And rises above, they're showing me with a higher vibration.
yeah.
So,
Hmm.
well, great topic.
Yeah. Thanks for kind of teasing this out with me, because you and I have talked about the fight and how we're over the fight and all of that, but it just didn't feel complete for me to say, like, well, I'm no longer a warrior anymore, because I've been doing this daily um, Kundalini yoga practice, and they do like 40-day challenges. And so this is my first 40-day challenge.
Ooh.
It's a very challenging practice. I think it is. It's very hard for me right now. I'm on day like 8 or something. It gets me very sweaty. It's pretty intense. And I'm like, fuck the yoga music. You know, I'm like jamming out to all my shit. I'm like, let's go, let's go. And that energy just like fuels me. And I'm like, oh, the warrior's here. She's here. She loves bringing her power and her energy. She just looks a lot different these days.
Yay.
Yeah. Thank you for talking this out with me.
Of course. Thanks for bringing the topic to the table. Stay tuned for mental illness.
Next week, we'll talk about mental illness. What the hell is it?
Yeah. Um,
Blessings on all of your warrior ways.
Thanks for joining.
Love y'all.